everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Driving User Adoption. My name is Andy Cluck, and I'm on the marketing team here at Ledgeview Partners. We're a Microsoft Gold partner and a Salesforce Silver consulting partner. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, Ledgeview Partners helps businesses transform their approach to sales, marketing, and customer service by aligning these teams to focus on improving their customers' experience, but also providing management with metrics through technology to evaluate their success. For today's webinar, we're going to be covering a wide range of questions, ideas, stories, and best practices to help you drive and increase the user adoption at your organization. Before I turn things over to our presenter today, just have a couple of housekeeping items to cover. First off, today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees are going to receive an email from me shortly following this webinar. That's going to have a link to access the presentation on demand. I encourage you to share this with your team and network as well. To ensure the best audio quality, we do have everyone in listen-only mode, but if you do have a question, you'll see on the right-hand side on the GoToWebinar control panel, there's an area where you can submit questions. We have a lot to cover today, so we promise to follow up after the webinar, and we'll answer any questions that you submit offline. All right, now it's time to introduce our presenter for today, Michael Dodds. Mike is one of our support consultants here at Ledgeview Partners. Mike has been working in Dynamics 365 or CRM and Salesforce for over 3 years. He has many certifications in both Dynamics and Salesforce environments. Mike also heads up our monthly Dynamics 365 user groups that covers tips, tricks, and featured topics on Dynamics 365. Mike is passionate about CRM tools, and that's why I know he's excited to talk to you about how you can drive and increase the adoption of the tools, the CRM tools at your organization. Mike, it's all yours, bud.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Andy. I hope everyone is doing well today. I'm really excited about this topic as CRM is only as good as how much your users use it. So this is focusing on user adoption, different tips, tricks, best practices, and different things that we've experienced over the years. My experience is I have helped with projects in terms of where you're first setting up a project and understanding the ways that a project needs to be set up to gain that user adoption. And it doesn't start after the project is completed or once you're ready to train. It starts at the beginning. And also have experiences from trying to regain that user adoption. Like something's already been launched, you want to relaunch it out to your users and really get them back on board. And also from the support standpoint of the users continuing to have ideas to drive CRM forward and those different user adoption tactics after a launch is done. So really we're going to focus on the before, during, and after of a launch. So let's jump in. As I was saying, user adoption is key to any successful CRM project. Basically, without user adoption, CRM is just a tool. Without users actually using it, you don't get those benefits that Andy had mentioned before. The focus on user adoption should be constant. Your job with user adoption is never finished. Even if you had excellent user adoption from the beginning, rollout, and afterwards, you have to keep doing it. The second you stop focusing on user adoption is the second that your users will stop using. Our main focus today is to have you leave here with ideas to apply right away and be equipped to reevaluate your approach to user adoption. So basically take an inward look at how you're currently doing user adoption and if there's any tips and tricks that we give you today that you could implement. These tips are universal. They can be used on either Salesforce or Dynamics 365. It can be for a new deployment, an upgrade, new functionality that you're adding, a complete relaunch. They can be used for anything, and that's the great thing about this webinar today. Structure of our content, I kind of touched on this, the before, during, and after of a CRM launch. And then interaction. If you have stories that you want to share throughout this, please do so. So within that question pane that Andy had set up, we have people on this that would be on this webinar that would be really interested in hearing your stories of what worked and what didn't work. And then we can also address those as well offline, like Andy mentioned. A way to kind of think about user adoption, the before, during, and after is kind of like a wedding. If you do all of your preparation ahead of time for a wedding, which is a lot of work, a lot of talking, a lot of understanding what needs to be done, the actual day or during the launch actually goes off without a hitch and has very, very few hiccups. And then after the CRM launch, this is the marriage. This is where you're constantly talking, constantly communicating, wanting to understand how to push things forward and grow. Same thing with CRM launch, with your user adoption. You want to constantly talk to your users, understand what their wants and needs are to help drive the system forward to be even better for them. So before launch, what we're going to focus on today is leadership involvement and your project team, system design and planning, specifically a phased approach, and then your plan for training. Not a training plan, but your plan for how you're going to train. Communication to users and key takeaways. Now, communication is something you're going to hear consistently through this webinar, and probably by the end of it, you're going to be sick of the word communication. So leadership involvement. When we were talking about user adoption and some of the big things that drive it or take away from user adoption or make it take a big hit, one of the key factors was leadership involvement. When you have leadership involvement, the users are seeing that management and their leadership is really taking a focus on this and see the importance of it. Conversely, if we see a lack of leadership involvement, that actually tends to take a big hit to user adoption, where users are seeing that leadership doesn't find this as important, so why should I find it important? You want to define an executive sponsor and some key stakeholders within the group. Basically, who's the person that's constantly being the cheerleader for this, and then some key stakeholders, basically key people that are going to interact with this. Develop and articulate the vision and user expectations. So you really want to know and understand the vision. Where do you want to go with CRM? And what's the vision for your users? And then define their expectations. Your users need to know what's expected of them and what they expect CRM to do for them. User adoption should be considered right at the conception of the CRM vision. So when you're coming up with that vision, keep your users in mind. Be transparent. Don't hide why you're doing it. Don't try to just push the CRM system out and say you need to use it. Have your users understand why they're going to be using it. What's the benefit for them? Focus on different user gains. So basically, what are my users going to gain from this experience from using CRM? Also focus on benefits to the business. Obviously, you're a business, you're putting this in for a reason, but don't have only the focus be on the benefits of the business. Always focus on the user gains as well. That way your users understand why it's important to them and what they're going to get out of it. Acknowledge pain points of the current system and the process. So if simply by communicating, we've been hearing that there are, pain points within our current system that aren't allowing you to do these specific things. So communicate that out and the pain with the current process, and that you've heard these voice concerns, and you're taking a step forward to help mitigate those issues and those pain points. Also acknowledge that change is uncomfortable. No one loves change, but sometimes change is what helps drive a business forward and helps your users get more out of their day. But acknowledging that it's going to be an uncomfortable change just because it is a change. So having them understand that and hear leadership understand that it's going to be uncomfortable helps them to realize, like, okay, we know it's going to be tough, but they're really looking out for our interests. So that's important as well. Create some buzz and excitement. Be excited about this. Help them gain excitement as well. If they're seeing you excited as a leader, they're going to start to get excited as well. Create buzz about what it's going to be able to do for the users and for the company. So that's where you're kind of being transparent on the user gains and the benefits. But have buzz, excitement, send out emails, get the communication flowing. And leadership engagement and their support is crucial to user adoption. So you can be engaged, but you also want to help support your users, help support them use this new system. So it's really critical in user adoption. Next, we're going to focus on the project team. So prior to designing the system, you want to develop an effective team. Now, there's a planning for CRM success presentation that was also in our 2017 CRM conference. They're going to provide a little bit more detail about developing the appropriate project team. Our point here is that there should be user representation of the project team and careful consideration of who is on the team. So the strategic consideration of user team members, you want to have a representation of all types of users. You don't want to just have sales, you don't want to just have support, or you don't want to just have operations. You want to have everybody that's going to be using the system in different walks of life and understanding exactly what their pain points are, so you're getting the most from every person that's going to be using the system. Define those power users. Make sure that you have people that are going to be not only the cheerleader of the system, but are going to be the people that are going to be using it the most. Define who those people are and that your users can go to with questions. And invite the users to be part of the team. Help them understand that they're representing themselves and their peers. So don't make it you have to join this committee, invite them. Basically, your opinion matters to us. We want to invite you to be part of this to grow our company. Some elements of a team as well is you want to have managers, subject matter experts, cross-functional and cross-departmental teams. Basically, again, cover the gamut. Basically, also be sure that all team members understand or are aligned with the vision and those user benefits. So that's what we mentioned on the previous slide, having a CRM vision and having the user benefits top of mind. Make sure the team members understand that and everything they do is aligned with that, because that's your focus in driving user adoption and implementing a CRM. The team should also be consistent throughout the project. You want to have it consistent before, during, and after launch. Have those same people. If you can have those same people, it's going to help drive user adoption just because it's consistent in all aspects. Next, we're going to jump into system design and planning. Some components of design that are critical to user adoption. The design phase of the project is a key component. We honestly could have dedicated an entire session to this, but we wanted to highlight two key elements of the design that can make a big impact on this. So requirements and objectives. You want to make sure that you really have your requirements and objectives understood. And one really great way to do that is by doing a survey. But don't make the survey long. Give prioritized requirements and get feedback from the users. Get a priority list of what's important to them, but have them fill out a survey. Get this information back from the users. Again, if the users are having an input on the system, they're more likely to want to use it because they feel like they had an input and an impact of what's being built. But don't make it too long or drawn out because you might get less people to fill it out. With priorities, we want to be realistic and clear with the users of what a need is versus a want. Wants are great, but we really need to know what you need, because that's going to be the priority of what you want to make sure that you put into the system. And then business processes are impacted. That's definitely a key factor of this. So if business processes are going to change because the system is changing. So also developing a design around business processes to work best. Sometimes it's not just the system that needs to be changed, but it's the business process around it as well. So keeping that in forefront of mind when designing is also a key factor. Always bring it back to a day in the life of the user. So always bring the focus back to the lens of the user. Basically what that means is look through the eye of your users. What are they using the system of? So a day in the life of a support person, a day in the life of a salesperson. What are they using the system for? What do they need to be able to accomplish their job and be most efficient? So always keep that in mind. Make CRM your one-stop shop where your users gather and enter information. I can personally speak to this when you have 5 different systems that you're using. It becomes hard to know which one you need to put the information into and where you need to go for the information. So making CRM your one-stop shop allows your users to know, if I go to CRM, I'm getting good, accurate information, and this is where I need to enter the information. So making it that one-stop shop is really important. Now, depending on phased approach and timing, it may be where you have a back office system and then CRM, where eventually you could marry the two and have this information from the back office system transitioned into CRM. But for the most part, as best as you can, make it a one-stop shop. Clean and accurate data. You can follow every tip, trick, best practice, everything we say today, you can follow it perfectly, and you can have the best setup for user adoption. But if you don't have clean and accurate data, nothing kills user adoption faster than inaccurate data. Because basically your users are saying it's not clean, it's not credible, it's not complete or reliable. Your user adoption will start to plummet. So you want to always plan enough time for data within your project, because that's a really, really key part in making sure that your users are getting the most out of the system. Because if it's not clean and accurate, they're not going to want to use the system. Quick access from anywhere, web, mobile. Focus on the web at first, but maybe eventually down the road, or even at inception, you want to give them access to mobile. This is dependent on your business and kind of how your users will use the system, but giving them quick access from anywhere is really important, because if they can't access the system, it's not going to do them any good. Also, foreshadow any user excuses and eliminate them. So simply by understanding your people and understanding how they think and how they act and how you interact with them on a daily basis, you can plan what obstacles you're going to run into, and then you can plan how to answer those questions, answer those excuses, and eliminate them. What's in it for me? You are not done planning and shouldn't start an implementation until you've clearly defined what's in it for me for each group of users. What's in it for me is the biggest question that has to be answered when it comes to user adoption. Because if every user can see what's in it for me, they're going to want to use the system. Phased approach. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So your first impression to the user needs to be clear, it needs to be simple, and it needs to be usable. If they get a system that's way too complex and it's too hard to learn, their first impression is going to be negative. So you always want to put a good first impression. So your phase 1 needs to be simple. Don't over-engineer. Don't focus on all the great bells and whistles that you can do with the CRM, because there's a lot. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with CRM. But keep it simple. Focus on quick wins. So those surveys that you did, understanding what users' pain points are and what their needs are, focus on quick wins that they can see an immediate impact and change. So a noticeable user benefit. So if something's taking forever, in the old system, it takes a really long time to enter certain information, or you have to enter it in multiple different places, focus on that. A quick win would be having a one place to enter information. So focus on those pieces. Future phases. Set expectations from the beginning that CRM is going to evolve. You want to take kind of the approach with a phased approach of the crawl, walk, run, fly. You don't want to try and fly first, because inevitably we end up crashing. So we want to go in phases. So set the expectations that you're not going to always be at a crawl. Eventually you're going to fly with CRM. just make them understand that it's always evolving, that more efficiencies are going to come. Focus on it being a journey for them. And then articulate that future vision, that vision that you came up with. Articulate that to them. Let them know that there is a vision, there is a plan for the future. Let them know what that is. That way they know that this isn't just the end-all be-all where CRM today is. That their voices are going to be heard and then it's going to continue to evolve with their benefit in mind. Plan for training. So as I said in the beginning, this is not a training plan. This is more what your plan is for the training aspect of user adoption. One of the things I see the most is that this is actually left until the very, very end. It's the last thing that's thought of. It's like, we've done CRM, we've designed it, we've implemented it. Oh no, now we've got to train all our users on how to do it. Let's just throw something together. So don't leave it until the end. Focus on training and have a plan in place for it. Get a logical grouping of users. It doesn't just have to be by role. It can be, so you can group it by salesperson, support, operations, but also look a little bit deeper. Look at how quickly do my users learn? Do I have a group of people that are really quick learners? And then do I have a group of people that maybe learn a little bit slower and need a little bit more hand-holding? We might want to put those in two different groups. Also, people that are really responsive to change, enjoy change, want to learn new things. Or people that are more reluctant to change. They're going to be a little bit more, not necessarily negative, but reluctant to go to the new system. Maybe group those people together. That will also then tailor your relevant agenda for each group. Once you know the group, you can understand what's the best way to train each of these and what's the agenda, what things do I want to focus on. Size of the training class. If you have a group of people that are really quick learners, really responsive to change, you maybe can have a little bit of a larger training class and a little bit shorter of a session just because they're going to be interacting, they're going to want to learn, they're going to be really gung-ho about it. Where you might want to have a little bit of a smaller training class so you can have a more hands-on training with people that are a little bit more reluctant to change or it's harder for them to learn new systems. So you might have a smaller training class there, and then you might have a little bit of a longer training session just to get those more hands-on experiences. Now, length of training and the number of sessions, I've done various different gamuts of training times. I've done 6-hour trainings. I've done 1-hour trainings. You really want to understand your group and know when they've kind of hit that wall where no more information is going to come in. And each group can be a little bit different as well. So your length of training is going to be dictated upon that group and the number of sessions. So it could be you want to get in 8 hours of training or 6 hours of training. Do 3 2-hour sessions or do 2 3-hour sessions. Again, that's predicated on your group. And then who is the trainer? There's 2 different ways of doing this. You can have partners do the training. You could have power users do the training. What we've seen works best with user adoption is actually a combination of the two, where a partner, where they have extensive knowledge of the system, they could have been involved in the design and implementation and have a really great understanding of CRM in general and your specific system. They then train a group of power users. And then those power users then train the rest of the users. Why that's important is because those power users are getting the information directly from the partner, somebody that was maybe involved in the design and implementation. But the users are getting trained by somebody in their company that they see day in and day out, understand what they go through on a daily basis, and can speak to that. And they can see that their company is really involved in the training. And that really helps to drive user adoption. Another thing that keep in mind is, do we want to conduct this as in person or do we want to do more of a remote session? There are benefits to each one. Remote is, you're not putting everybody in a room. So if you have people all over the country, remote might be the best way because you're not spending money to get everybody in the same room. where in person, you could see everybody's faces, see how engaged they are. Remote, you really can't see that. They could be not paying attention. They could be possibly doing some of their work during the training, where in person, you have more of a captive audience. And then what training materials will you need? Do you need training documents? One really important thing is to, we call it a quick reference card. It's a PDF of different quick tips and tricks that you can use based on, the accounts, contacts, opportunities, various things that you're going to be using within the system, and quick tips on how to use them. Videos is an ever growing training tool. And this is more for like training afterwards, putting together short little videos of, how to share a view, how to create a contact, things like that people can go, okay, I'm really interested in this, but I want to see it. I'm a visual learner. Let me watch this happen. And then they can recreate it. Recording those training sessions that you've done so they can rewatch them at a later time. Maybe they weren't able to focus as well during the training session. They had either something on the mind or an emergency came up. If it's recorded, they can go back and view it. Or if they want to focus on a certain part of the training, they can go back and view that later. Customized help menu and guided learning. You can actually put guided learning right within your CRM, whether it be Salesforce or Dynamics 365. You can put together a guided learning as well. Training scenarios. I'm a huge believer in training scenarios. This is something that you can put together, and you can basically, it's an explain, show, do kind of mentality. And the training scenarios is the do portion. You have people do these different training scenarios, and if you're in person, you can really have them interact with you, ask questions while they're trying to do it, or with a remote session, you can have them take it as homework, to do at a later time and then come back with questions. And training scenarios don't do much good if you don't have training data available. So make sure they have training data available so they can work within the system. Communication tips. Early and often, you want to make sure that you are constantly letting the customer know, or your users know when it's coming. So send out a stay tuned email, basically saying stay tuned. We got this new CRM coming into place. It's gonna be huge. And if you know when it's going to be implemented, you can also put that information in there. But you don't have to have that information. Just giving them acknowledgement that something new is coming, and then constantly building off of it. One of the worst things is to hear, hey, stay tuned, this is coming, and then not hear anything about it until the day before it launches. Because your users are going to start going, remember that CRM that they said was going to be in place? Have you heard anything more about it? Be transparent. Don't hide anything. Be transparent about why you're doing this, when it's going to happen, and about CRM. But also in your communication, be short and to the point. Don't put too much information in there because then you might lose them. So make it short and to the point, but keep it early and often. Focus on what, when, and why. So what we're doing, when we expect it to be done, and more importantly, why are we doing this? Why is it important to you as a user that we're doing this? Consistent messaging from all levels of leadership. If you're getting a different message from your manager than you are from maybe a director or a CEO, then the consistent message isn't coming across. And also focus on the power of who it's from. Unfortunately, this is just part of the world that we live in, that a CEO's message means a lot more than maybe your coworkers. So having your CEO send an email and say, hey, we're really excited about the CRM coming into place. It's going to do a lot of benefits for not only our company, but you as users on a daily basis. That's going to mean a little bit more than it is coming from, Andy, who works in the marketing department as my coworker. It might mean a little bit more. So that's one thing to focus on as well. Communication tactics. I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but the stay tuned email. Giving them a heads up that something's coming. Company intranet announcement. So if you have an intranet, put it on the company intranet as an announcement of what's coming, and then put updates on there as well. Put it in the company newsletter. If you have company and departmental meetings, put it in the agenda. Talk about it. Basically keep it forefront of mind so everybody's going, wow, this is coming. Everybody's really excited about this. So am I. I'm really excited for this to come down the pipe, and I'm ready to use it. And then regular email updates. People do look at newsletters, they do look at the internet, but not as much as they do for email. So sending those regular email updates is also nice, just to keep it in the forefront of their mind. So some key takeaways from the planning or the before. It starts with leadership involvement. Make sure that your leaders are involved. It really has a big impact on user adoption. Planning, planning, planning. This is the CRM version of the real estate's location, location, location. Planning is so important. Keep your users' experience top of mind. Engage those users early. Get a good team of all different types of users together. And again, you're going to be tired of it, but communication. Keep those communication lines open. It's very important. Next, we're going to jump into the during the launch. This is where you focus on performing testing, executing the training, and then day of launch festivities, and make it a festivity. The during the launch may not necessarily be the day, but it's the short time period in which we're doing the final prep and delivery of the launch. So perform testing. User involvement, I cannot stress this enough. User involvement is one of the biggest and most important things, because your users use the system in different ways than maybe the people that designed it and implemented it. They're going to find different ways to use it, and having them really beat up the system and really find different ways to use it. Plus, it's an exposure to them of what the system is going to be like, and then they can be like, okay, I really like this piece, or I'm seeing this little bit of a bug here. It's really great to get their involvement and feedback. Be strategic in the users that you want. Usually users from that project team are going to be doing it, but you can add others. I mean, it's user acceptance training, so you want to add other users as well. Execute a testing plan. There's different ways to do this. You can have, an entire script together. All right, I want this group to focus on these pieces, this group to focus on these pieces. This is what I want you to test. But regardless of whether it's really, really structured and with testing scripts and everything, with screenshots and everything like that, to an informal training, regardless, you want an ample instruction on what and how to test. Because without that direction, they're not going to really know what to do, and you're not going to get good results back. And then also tell them where to document their testing results. Are we going to record these results in SharePoint or in an Excel document, or right within CRM? It's capabilities to set up something within CRM to simply put in their testing information. Regardless, find a way to tell them how, where, and more importantly, make it easy for them to record the results. And then discuss that testing feedback with the project team. But don't just discuss it, take action as well. So evaluating that testing feedback, and not just showstoppers, not just, wow, this doesn't work, I'm getting this error and I can't do anything, but even just things as, this isn't quite doing what I expected it to do. Talk about it with your team and then take action to improve upon those. And most importantly, get official approval from the testers and the project team before moving forward. Execute training. So we did a plan for training. You want to make sure you put together a training plan as well, and then execute that training plan. Leaders, we're coming back to this. Leaders play a huge role. Have them either introduce the training, explain why it's so important to really focus in on this training. Play a role within the training. Maybe they do a portion of the role play section, or they can just be involved in the training. And regardless, we know that everyone has a busy schedule, but we do want to at least have leadership drop by the training, have a presence during the training, just so they see how important it is to their leadership. users really, really gravitate to that. As they see the CEO stop by a training session, they know that it's really important that he even stopped by to see this happening. It sends a message. I touched on it a little bit earlier. Training being led by your company as much as possible. It really helps to drive home the importance. Because if you have, your company, people in your company, maybe power users doing that training, they know the ins and outs of the business. They know the ins and outs of the key things that you've had struggles with because they've experienced it themselves. And them leading the training really helps drive home the importance. Structure of the training. Have a structure to it, but also do the explain, show, do. Explain how to do it, show them how to do it, and then have them do it. It really helps to drive it home because just hearing how to do it doesn't really do any good. You need to see it be done. And then a lot of people need to learn by actually doing it hands-on. So it really helps to drive home for, most of those learning strategies that people have, different ways of learning. It really helps to drive each of them home for each type of learning people. Conclude each session with clearly defined what's next. Don't just end the training session and then not tell them what's coming. Tell them what's next. Is there going to be additional training? When's the CRM going to be launched out? But really, really drive home what the next steps are. And then detail out the support process. So what's my avenue? Where do I go if I'm having issues? What do I do? So be really clear about how the support process works for launch. Because the last thing you want to do is get to launch and have everybody go, where am I supposed to go? I have an issue. Advise that videos or self-help resources are available. So when we talked about those different, training documents, videos, training scenarios, different items like that, tell them where it's available and how they can have self-help for themselves to get more information. Set expectation that additional training will be offered, whether it's individual or group. If, maybe a couple weeks after launch, we're going to get everybody back together and we're going to discuss this. Or have different individual where you talk to your manager or you talk to power users to be able to go, okay, I need a little bit more help on this. Just set the expectation that we're not just saying, here's your one training, now good luck. Just let them know that they're going to be supported throughout. Ensure that all questions are answering before you end the training session, or set the expectations that they're going to be answered and when. I do a lot of trainings for LedgeView partners, and one of the biggest things that I say at the very beginning of every one of my training sessions is ask questions. I don't feel like I've covered everything that needs to be covered until I have answered all of your questions. And that holds true in any type of training. And the reason for that is, if somebody has a question and they don't know the answer to it, they don't feel like they truly know the system until they feel comfortable with every question that they have and it's been answered and they know what to do. Then they feel comfortable that they themselves know it. Not just that we've given them the information, but that the user feels comfortable. Day of launch festivities. As I said, make this a festivity. It's important. Here's the day of the launch. This is a huge, important time for your company and for your users. All that hard work, planning, testing, training is now come to life in this new system. Make sure leadership is present and engaged. Again, we keep coming back to leadership and communication. Having leadership there, having leadership, maybe even sending an email out at the beginning of the day saying, hey, the new system is here. We're really excited to roll it out, and giving them information about it and being very excited about it. This next one sounds obvious, but it's really, really important. Have your support resources and power users readily available. We've come across in different projects where support resources and power users, not all of them were available because either they were in an all-day conference themselves, off-site, out of the office on vacation, making sure those support resources and power users are readily available, because if they're not, your users aren't getting their questions answered, and then it's going to put a negative spin on user adoption, a negative impact. Food. Who doesn't love free food? And who doesn't love food in general? It's a great way to kind of make it a celebration of rolling out this new system and how important it is. So, and it boosts morale, it boosts the, excitement level of the day. So that's a good thing to throw in there as well. This one's really important. Expect a few issues and be prepared for some user frustration. If you don't encounter any issues or any frustrations whatsoever from any of your users, that means that your users aren't using the system. It's a new system. It doesn't matter how perfectly it was rolled out, there are still going to be issues just because it's new. But stay positive. Understand that there are going to be issues. Understand that your users are just want to learn it. So stay positive and keep reinforcing that vision. One of the biggest things that I hear is this is really hard to use. I'm not ready for this change. You can say, I know it's hard now. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult now, but imagine 3 months down the road where you're really pulling out some great information, you're increasing the amount of opportunities that you're closing, and you're really increasing your efficiency throughout the day. Keep that in mind. So show them the vision. Communicate and re-communicate that plan and what is expected of your users. So maybe send a reminder email in the morning. Say, hey, the system's launched. Remember to, enter your opportunities through or enter your leads here. Just reinforce little things that maybe you did during the training. Or if you really, really want to help out your support team, and I can speak to this personally, one of the biggest questions that we get is, what's my URL and how do I log in? Providing that information either individually, like send an individual email to each person, letting them know the URL, their username, their password, or just kind of the general format of it, you can do that as well. And then send a recap email in the afternoon. Say, hey, we did a really great job today. This many leads were entered. This many people logged in and used the system. Give them some statistics to kind of show how well it went off. Now, going back to our wedding analogy, we've now done all the prep and planning for the big day. We've had the big day. It's rolled out. It was a success. But what's next? What do we do afterwards? Well, this is where you keep those communication lines open. You kind of, for user support, what do I do immediately afterwards if I have concerns? Keep those users engaged. Keep those communication lines open. Hold people accountable. You now rolled out the system. You've explained it. Now hold them accountable to actually using the system. And then keep evolving. Don't stay stagnant. Keep evolving the system. User support. There's different support between go live and after go live. During go live, you probably had a larger group of support people, a larger group of power users to answer questions. That may be slimmed down after go live just because you're using the system, there's less immediate questions. And then communicate what resources are available and where you can find them. The worst thing is for a user to go, okay, I need help. I don't know what my resources are or where I go to get them. Have them know that information. Keep your users engaged. Continue coaching and refresher training. Don't just leave them high and dry. Keep them coached up on what to do in the system. Continue training and make those training resources readily available. Those videos, those quick resource cards, quick reference cards, excuse me. Send periodic tips and tricks. When users send out emails, maybe every Wednesday saying, oh, this is something I found really interesting this past week. Try this. And when they come from other users, you're like, wow, that's a really great trick. I want to be able to come up with something next time. So it almost becomes kind of a competition as well to be that next person to find a great tip and trick, which means they're using the system. Make available an open forum for users to submit feedback. Talk about what they like about the CRM system. What they really enjoy, what's important to them. But don't just make it all the great things about it. Also get help desk issues, tips and tricks, different ways to enhance the system. So open it up to get actual genuine feedback from your users. So functionality enhancement and ideas. Once they've been using the system, they might go, it'd be really great if it could do this. Give them an environment or forum to put that information in. Track help desk issues. So a way to submit them, a way to track them, and a way to know that they're getting resolved. And then posting different tips and tricks. They don't have to be emails. They can be posted on a forum. And then do a user survey. After this has been rolled out, maybe after a month or so after the launch, ask what they like, what they struggled with, what they still need help with, what may be different enhancement ideas that they have. So send out a user survey. Again, don't make it too long, because otherwise they tend to be filled out less if they're too long. And then get users involved in user groups and attend conferences. One thing at Ledgeview Partners here, as Andy mentioned, we offer a user group webinar. This is and there's many available. Different user groups within your community as well, and attend conferences. Continue to get more information engaged in the system, and then constantly communicating what's next. So even though you just roll out a brand new system, still tell them what's coming next. That it's not just stagnant and this is what you're going to get. So always communicate what's coming next. Hold people accountable. Users perform better when they know and they will meet expectations when they understand what they need to do within CRM and what they need to do for their job within CRM. They're going to perform better and hit those expectations when they know what it is and it's clearly defined. Set clear, attainable goals. Set one for users, set one for a department, set one for company. If all users are hitting their goals, the department's hitting their goals. And if all users and departments are hitting their goals, so is the company. But set those goals. Have their users reach for them. And then set a stretch goal. Set something specific to that user that's a stretch goal for them. During one-on-one meetings, coaching sessions, use CRM as a coaching tool. So for a sales group, when talking about opportunities, go to CRM to talk about their opportunities. If it's not in there, if you're only seeing one or two opportunities, use that as a coaching tool to be able to say, okay, I know you have these 10 different things that you're working on, which are great, but we need to make sure that they're in the system, because if they're not in the system or in any CRM, then it's not real in the eyes of the company. So use it as a coaching tool to help to hold them accountable to using the system. Create a competition. Most of the users that use CRM are salespeople, so creating competition for your team based around using CRM is a great tool. It reinforces the basics of CRM. It pushes the use of CRM because the competition forces them to use the system, and it satisfies that what's in it for me barrier. It can be, the competition can be something as simple as, a food day or, anything like that. It can be something small, but it satisfies the what's in it for me because they want to win the competition. But you're also getting everything out of it because you're getting them to use the system, and it reinforces the basics of it. It's driving that adoption. Keep evolving. Continue down the road that you were on with planning. Stay disciplined. Keep to that roadmap. In other words, start phase 2 of design. Keep to the what you stated you were going to do from the beginning. Always stay disciplined to that. Don't table too much to go to the next phase. You can do some logical enhancements when it's applicable or feasible between phases. So if there's some small changes, small enhancements that you want to get that's going to really benefit your users, but isn't too big that would need to be done in a different phase, go ahead and put in those enhancements between phases. Keep communication, keep getting that feedback and addressing it. So constantly monitor user feedback and address that. Don't just have them submit it and only look at it. Address it. So then your users know that what the feedback they're giving is actually being heard and something's going to be done about it. And that's really important to user adoption. Stay in alignment with that vision. So what you stated that you're going to do from the beginning, that vision that you set, stay in alignment. Keep going down that path. Communicate. Keep communication open. Tell them that it's evolving. Tell them what to expect next. I know I said it probably 100 times today, but communication is one of the most important pieces of user adoption. So really, to recap, the 3 stages of user adoption are the before, during, and after of launches. Leadership involvement is crucial to before, during, and even after the launch. It's really, really important, leadership involvement. Project team, just making sure that you have a good project team across all the different user types within the system. System design and planning, take a phased approach. Don't try and fly right away. Crawl, walk, run, then fly. Plan for your training. Not necessarily training plan, but plan what you're going to do for your training. And then during, perform your testing, execute the training. And then make the day a festivity. Make it enjoyable. Really get everybody involved, and then understand that there's going to be some pain points just because it's a new system. And then after the launch, focus on user support, how they can get that support. Keep it clearly communicated. Keep your users engaged. Find ways for them to provide communication back to you, and then submit support tickets as well. Hold people accountable. You put the system in place for a reason. Now hold your people accountable to use the system. And then keep evolving. As we've said throughout this, keep ever that vision and that roadmap forefront of mind about your users, and keep evolving the system. And then throughout all of this, communicate, communicate, communicate.
All right, thanks, Mike, once again for another great presentation. I'm sure plenty of listeners can start putting these ideas into practice to get everyone in their organization on board using these great CRM tools. And as Mike said, keep that communication going throughout the whole process. Before we close things out, I just want to mention some great LedGU Partners resources that everyone can take advantage of. If you go to our website, ledgupartners.com, and check out the resources tab, at the top, you're going to find a vast variety of different webinars on demand, including our CRM conference session recordings from this year, many ebooks and white papers, our blog featuring both Dynamics, Salesforce, and various thought leadership topics as well. We have monthly user group training as well, which Mike runs for the Dynamics side, and then we also have Salesforce as well, run by Ben Doler. And all those resources are available to you, so be sure to check those out. All right, just as a reminder, everyone who registered for today's webinar is going to receive an email with a link to the on-demand recording. I encourage you to share that with others in your company or network. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.